Chess is simple, just protect the king. So when white plays e4, you play e6. This is the French defense, and it is the hardest opening to lose with as black. Pay attention because in the next 8 minutes I am going to give you a masterclass on the French. E4, E6, D4, D5. This is the French defense. Now let us go through it slowly. When your opponent plays e4, you answer with e6. When they play d4 and take the center, you challenge it with d5. That is the starting position of the French. The idea behind it is simple. You let white build a big pawn center with these 2 pawns on e4. And then you attack it. A big center controls a lot of space and looks strong, but it is only strong until you go after it, and going after it is the whole plan. From here white has to deal with your d5 pawn, and he has 4 main options. He can push to e5. He can trade by taking on d5, he can defend with his knight to c3. Or he can play his other knight to d2. Each one gives you a good game, and I will show you the plan against all 4. We start with the most common one. e4, e6 d4, d5, e5. This is the advanced variation. Let us slow it down. After d5, white pushes his pawn to e5 and takes a lot of space. His pawns on d4 and e5 form a chain through the center. This is the line you will see the most below 1200, so it is the most important one to learn. A pawn chain has a weak point. And it is the pawn at the bottom, the one holding everything up. Here that is the d4 pawn. And it is your target for the whole game. You attack it right away with c5. White usually defends, with c3. You bring your knight to c6, which attacks d4 a second time. Then the most important move of the variation, your queen goes to b6, it attacks d4 a third time. And it also hits the b2 pawn behind white's position, which white almost always forgets about. Now you have 3 pieces attacking d4 and white struggles to defend it that many times. Before you win the pawn, play bishop to d7 first. It develops a piece, and it prevents a check from white's bishop on b5, so that you can take the pawn cleanly. Then you take on d4, white takes back, your knight takes, white takes the knight, and your queen takes the last pawn. You have won the d4 pawn and white's center is falling apart. One warning. Because this is where players get greedy, do not take the e5 pawn as well. You are already a pawn up and better. Taking e5 opens the position and gives white activity for free. Keep your extra pawn and finish developing. e4, e6, d4, d5. And white takes on d5. You take back on d5. This is the exchange variation. White trades the center pawns and the tension is gone. The position is symmetrical and easy to play. The best part is your light squared bishop on c8. In most French lines it is stuck behind your own pawns. But here those pawns are gone, so it comes straight out to f5 where it belongs. Then you develop normally with bishop to d6. Knight to f6, and castling. You have a comfortable, equal game with no weaknesses. White usually trades because he wants a calm position, and that is fine. Because it is very easy for you to play against. e4, e6, d4, d5, and the knight to d2. This is the Tarrasch variation. White defends his e4 pawn with the knight on d2. It is solid, but a little passive, because the knight blocks in his own bishop for a while. You react the same way you always do and play c5 to hit the center. White usually trades on d5, you recapture, and you have easy development with the same target in the middle. The plan does not change. Put your pieces on natural squares and keep the pressure on the center. e4, e6, d4, d5, and the knight to c3. This line can become very sharp and theory heavy. You do not need to memorize all of it. The simple, practical answer is to take the pawn with d takes e4. White takes back with the knight, and now the center is cleared, and the sharp theory is gone. You play a normal game from here. Knight to f6. Bishop to e7, and castle, you are completely fine. Before the example game. 2 mistakes that cost French players their games. The first is being passive. In the advance especially. If you never play c5 to hit the center, white keeps taking space until you have no room to move. So do not sit still. c5 is not optional. The second is trapping your own bishop. The light, squared bishop is the awkward piece in the French. If you lock all your pawns and never give it away out, it does nothing all game. Get it out to f5 in the exchange, free it with c5 in the advance, or trade it off. Do not leave it stuck. Let me walk through a full game so you can see the thinking behind each move. We open with d4 e6, d4 d5, and white pushes e5. This is the advance, it is your move. The whole plan starts with the d4 pawn, so the first question is how to attack it. The move is c5. It hits d4 immediately. You do not develop a piece first, here, because the fastest way to pressure white is to strike at the base of his chain right away. White plays c3 to defend d4. Now you develop with a purpose. Knight to c6 puts a second attacker on d4. You could consider the queen first. But the knight is the natural developing move and it keeps your plan on track. White plays knight to f3, adding another defender to d4. Now the key decision. You want a third attacker on the base, and the strongest way to get it is qb6. The queen hits d4 and also eyes the b2 pawn. You might worry the queen is exposed on b6, but white has no good way to attack it, and the pressure it creates is worth far more. White develops with bishop to d3 and prepares to castle. Here you have to be careful. The d4 pawn is ready to fall. But if you take it right now, white has a check with bishop to b5 that wins with bishop on c8. So play bishop to d7 first. It develops a piece and takes the check away. So next move you can win the pawn for free. White castles. Now you collect. You take on d4 with your pawn. White recaptures with his pawn. You take with your knight. White takes your knight, and you finish with your queen, taking on d4. You are a pawn up, your queen is strong in the center, and white has nothing for it. Now a real decision. The e5 pawn looks free, and your queen can take it. But that is a mistake. Taking e5 opens the center while your king is still in the middle, and it gives white activity for the pawn. You are already better, so there is no reason to take the risk. Instead you play f6, this attacks the e5 pawn, which is the last piece of white's old center. White cannot defend e5 properly. When it comes off the board, you take, and now white has no center at all. You are a clean pawn up with an open position, and the safer king. From here you finish developing, castle, and push your extra pawn later in the game. White is the one fighting to survive. And that came straight out of the opening plan. So that is the whole opening. e6 and d5 to set up. c5 to attack the base of white es center. Your knight and queen to pile on. And f6 to break it open. It is the same plan against almost everything white plays. Learn these ideas. Play a few games with them, and the French becomes one of the easiest and most reliable openings you can play as black. Good luck, and give it a try.